I listen, I love Chappelle, so I'm not gonna really speak on it, but for him to, you know, right now can't nobody touch him. The thing is, you got to ask yourself as an artist, is it special? Or are they taking advantage of me?
A lot of people in the trans community were furious with me, and apparently they dragged me on Twitter. I don't give a because Twitter's not a real place.
So, you know how Dave Chappelle always seems to stir up controversy right after dropping a new special? Well, this time it's no different. Apparently, he's in hot water again because of some remarks he made about the LGBTQ community in his latest special, The Closer. Obviously, those comments would ruffle some feathers in the LGBTQ community. But get this, Damon Wayans is also chiming in on the situation. He's not happy about Chappelle potentially getting blacklisted because of this controversy. Now that's some juicy stuff right there. Let's dive in and see what's going on.
I feel like Dave freed the slaves.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, the comedians. We were slaves to PC culture.
Damon Wayans had Dave Chappelle's back when he talked to TMZ about all the drama surrounding Chappelle's latest Netflix special, The Closer. In the special, Chappelle went after folks trying to cancel J.K. Rowling for her TERF remarks, made some bold statements like gender is a fact, and even claimed he's Team TERF. Of course, this stirred up some serious controversy, especially considering Chappelle's history of jokes about the trans community. But Wayans, famous for his role on My Wife and Kids, stepped up and compared Chappelle to none other than the legendary artist Van Gogh. Now that's some high praise right there.
He just, like, as an artist, he's Van Gogh, cut a zero, and he's trying to tell us it's okay.
So, he's not just talking about it, he's really diving into the whole deal. He's all about how everyone should have the freedom to speak their minds, especially when it comes to comedians. They should totally get to say whatever they want. But he's kind of worried about Dave because he's pushing the boundaries and might end up getting canceled for speaking his mind too freely.
I've always been free.
Right.
But I just think he's saying, you know what, with all that I have, I'm not afraid to lose it.
Moreover, when asked about what's up with the show's content, some folks said he seems skittish to dive into it. Maybe he's scared of catching flack like Dave did. But you know what? Despite the nerves, he's all about pushing the conversation forward. He's adamant that we need someone who's not afraid of industry bigwigs, and in his eyes, that someone is none other than Dave Chappelle.
I can't speak about the content of the show, but what I say is there's a bigger conversation we need to have. To look us in the eye and go, you're no longer.
However, Dave still found himself in hot waters. After the release of the special, Netflix employees spoke out against it, with one employee tweeting, "I didn't expect my job to include supporting the platforming of hate speech when I woke up today, yet here we are." Jacqueline Moore, the showrunner for Dear White People, took to Twitter to announce that she's stepping away from working with Netflix following the release of the special. In an interview with Variety, Moore, who's trans, clarified that she wasn't out to cancel Chappelle, but was genuinely taken aback by Netflix's decision to air the show.
And to kind of break down what works, what doesn't. And the thing that has been true from the beginning is Justin encourages us to write cinematically, which is not something that TV often does in writers' rooms.
Furthermore, 3 Netflix employees got suspended for crashing an executive meeting they weren't invited to. Apparently, in that meeting, Netflix co-CEO Ted Sarandos was standing by the decision to feature the controversial comedy special, as reported by Verge. However, these employees got reinstated just a day later. But all this drama just because of freedom of speech? And looks like this is not the first time happening with Dave. There is more to the story. After skyrocketing to fame with the widely praised Chappelle's show, he quickly became a major player in the entertainment scene. But as with many things, fame isn't all glitz and glamour. It brings its own share of hurdles. It's no secret that once an artist hits it big, there's often a hint of unease among the established figures in the industry. They might even pull strings behind the scenes to keep artists from soaring even higher, trying to safeguard their own influence.
But Dave Chappelle was decapitated in front of us.
Dave Chappelle has seen it all in Hollywood, from the dazzling highs to the troubling lows, and he's not shy about shedding light on what really goes down behind the scenes. One thing he's always made clear, Hollywood's shiny exterior doesn't paint the whole picture. Dave's always had a knack for seeing through the glamour and recognizing the raw truth. He knows that even with all the riches on offer, it's no match for the complex power dynamics at play among the industry's heavyweights.
It was so much money. How could you do that? And blah, blah, blah. But if I had taken that money and finished the show, I would have got the money, but I might never have been the same.
It is now known to everybody now that those who dare to shake up the status quo in Hollywood often face a barrage of attacks and character assassination attempts. Dave knows this firsthand, having weathered his own share of discouraging encounters. He's been on the receiving end of insults and seen friends and allies turn their backs on him, a sobering reality he openly discusses in interviews.
The drum beat is he's crazy, he smokes crack, he's this, he's that.
Yeah.
It was a wild experience. The way people close to you react to it, like I had failed or I'd ruined my life. You know,
Dave Chappelle's been standing tall against the big shots in Hollywood, speaking out against their shady dealings. He's not the only one who's been messed with by those power-hungry folks, but he's one of the few brave enough to call them out. What he probably didn't realize at first is that he's up against a whole messed-up system that's been screwing people over for centuries. Remember that time on Saturday Night Live when Dave Chappelle pointed out how many Jewish folks there are in Hollywood? He straight up said, "I've been to Hollywood. This is just what I saw," he said during his widely dissected monologue. It's a lot of Jews, like a lot, and ended up in another controversy. But where did that come from, you ask? Hollywood's got a bad rep for being racist and unfair. Black actors gotta hustle way harder just to get the same chances others get handed to them. It's like trying to change a massive ship's course with just a paddle. Ain't gonna happen overnight, especially when the big shots still want to call all the shots.
According to Chapelle and Tolan, the executives at Fox suggested changing the lead female character from black to white.
So get this, instead of making space for minorities and black folks, the bigwigs over at Fox thought it was the white crowd who needed more love. And get this, they wanted to do it on a show led by a black dude. Dave Chappelle himself said he was the brains behind his own show, doing all the heavy lifting.
that $50 million deal on the table, and in a crisis of conscience, flipped the table over and walked away.
Despite this, he was ordered to change the lead cast of the show into a white woman. Dave wanted black representation on his show, and despite all his contribution towards the show, he was being excluded from such important decisions. The insistence to change the cast left Dave disgusted. After all, how many shows at the time had an all-white cast that no one had a problem with? But as soon as a black man made a show for his people, casting black people, suddenly the executives raised issues. Dave talked about this in an interview. They fly me out for a creative meeting. I'm in a room full of white people, and they proceed to tell me why we need more white people on the show, so it can have a more universal appeal. Despite so many shows catering to white audiences, Dave was being asked to mold his show so that the white people could see themselves in it. This network built itself on black viewers, and what they're saying is, white people are narcissistic. They don't want to watch black people, they want to watch themselves. It tells every black artist, no matter what you do, you need whites to succeed. I felt like I was beaten up and completely degraded. It's disgusting, and it made me want to vomit. Even the executive producer of the show, Peter Tolan, agreed with Dave's viewpoint. Fox Entertainment's racism had been a slap in the face for both Tolan and Dave. Tolan spoke about this openly and said, "We were trying to do a realistic depiction of Dave's life, not a black show, but a smart, funny show that happened to be black. But Fox said there needs to be more white faces. Basically, Dave Chappelle cannot appear on Fox TV unless Whitey gets him in the door. It's embarrassing, and I realized I couldn't do it. I felt morally it was wrong. If the producer also didn't want these changes, then who did?" This incident really opened Dave's eyes to what really goes on in the industry and who is in control. Of course, the higher-ups at Fox Entertainment denied any such allegations. According to them, racism wasn't intended and that they were only making an innocent suggestion. The Fox network respects the unique perspective and integrity of each member of its audience, and to suggest anything less is disturbing and upsetting in light of our past, present, and future efforts. Dave was so disturbed by this incident that he did a special focusing on the issue of racism.
Traveling has made me a racism connoisseur, if you will. You know, it's different from region to region.
Chapelle, being the comedic genius he is, addressed the issue with his signature humor and lightheartedness. But let's be real, him bringing it up shows he was seriously ticked off. Racism's like an open secret in Hollywood, and those big shots up top, they've been playing their part in keeping the scales tipped. Dave had every right to be furious. After busting his chops for years, he finally gets his shot, only for the Hollywood elites to mess it up, all 'cause of the color of his skin. It's messed up, plain and simple.
I can't believe someone did that to me.
People are just as angry as Dave, as some of them have taken to social media to highlight just how much Hollywood is responsible for racism in the industry. One Twitter user wrote, "Why do you think our people have just started to formally break into Hollywood, like en masse in 2019? Maybe it's because it's racism. This is racism. Natives have and continue to be held back actively in Hollywood from telling our stories, because one crack, the dam breaks." Fox Network never forgot the fact that Dave had stood up in front of a network as powerful as them, and even years later, people associated with the network keep bringing him up and maligning his name. He spoke against the racist remarks of Candace Owens, who is an author and talk show host and is associated with Fox Network. Candace had brought up the death of George Floyd and asked why he was made into a hero. Despite being a black person herself, Candace continued to be racist, and Dave was not having it, so he responded to her, "We didn't choose him, you did. They killed him and that wasn't right, so he's the guy. We're not desperate for heroes in the black community. Any expletive that survives this nightmare is my goddamn hero." Another Fox News host openly announced how racist she was by asking LeBron James to shut up and dribble. This made Chapelle angry, and he responded, "She told one of Ohio's greatest residents to shut up and dribble. I'll tell you something about LeBron James. He was on the cover of Sports Illustrated when he was 17 years old and exceeded every expectation they had of him. My friend is the best at something, and she's not the best at anything. She's just a regular white woman with a platform." The internet is also angry at the blatant racism of Fox Network that is still going on till date. One person tweeted, "I know it's disgusting how blatantly Fox promotes racism, white supremacy, and insurrection without apologizing. Fox Network should be banned from broadcasting. They are trying to create a civil war where their actions are criminal." Well, not only this, according to news, he was also scammed by the Comedy Central too. Comedy Central was once the biggest platform for comedians and budding artists. The popular network was famous for its hilarious shows and its new and emerging comedians. In the 2000s, the platform struck gold when they landed a contract with none other than Dave Chappelle. The show became so famous that suddenly Dave was a household name all over America, and Comedy Central was the most popular channel for people to tune in. The Chappelle Show was a huge hit thanks to Dave's comedic genius and the perfect delivery of the cast. In just 3 seasons and 28 episodes, Chappelle's show was able to establish a lasting legacy on television. Fans all over the world still talk about the show and how much they loved it. One such fan wrote, "We had something special when the Chappelle Show was on the air." Dave thought that after the Fox fiasco, Comedy Central was going to be his safe haven, a place where he can freely express himself and not have to worry about bigotry and racism. This was his chance to give back to his black community. He wanted his work to be something that black people could be proud of. He spoke about how important this was to him in the Oprah show. Dave wanted to make sure that he involved his community in this show. He wanted to invite black people, black artists, and musicians to the show to make up for the opportunities that the racist Hollywood executives don't give them. But unfortunately, this was also a dream that never materialized. Comedy Central was never the haven Dave had believed it to be.
I believe that they gave me a raw deal because this industry is a monster.
The network was just another greedy bunch who couldn't give a damn about black folks. They kept pushing Dave to play it safe, to make softer, easier jokes that wouldn't ruffle any feathers or spark any change. Comedy Central started calling the shots on what Dave could and couldn't say on his show, putting his creative freedom on the line once again. They kept telling him to steer clear of the real talk, like slavery and racism, but that never flew. People could smell the half-heartedness from a mile away. Dave remembers that whenever he caved to the network's pressure, the audience just wasn't feeling it. Dave could never settle for this, as for him, artistic freedom is the most important thing for an artist. He talked about this once and said, "The more you say I can't say something, the more urgent it is for me to say it. It has nothing to do with what you're saying I can't say. It has everything to do with my right, my freedom of artistic expression that is valuable to me, that is not separate from me. It's worth protecting for me, and it's worth protecting for everyone else who endeavors in our noble profession." Dave knew that his audience were smart people who understood the intricacies of race and bigotry, but Comedy Central had other plans. They didn't want to upset the bigots or the racists. But Dave wasn't about to take that lying down. This whole deal went against everything he stood for as an artist and performer. In an interview, he spoke out about the lack of freedom of speech, saying, "Art is a powerful commodity. An artist, if you're good at it, should never behave as a commodity. My biggest gripe with this whole controversy with the closer is that you cannot report on an artist's work and remove artistic nuance from his words. It would be like if you were reading a newspaper and they say, man shot in the face by a 6-foot rabbit expected to survive, and they never tell you it's a Bugs Bunny cartoon. Comedy Central wasn't just stifling his freedom of speech, they were also stiffing him on the money he was rightfully owed.
People think I made a lot of money for Chappelle's show. When I left that show, I never got paid. They didn't have to pay me because I signed the contract.
When Comedy Central offered Dave $50 million for a third season, he refused. Even after Dave refused the offer, Comedy Central wouldn't just let this pass. In fact, they came after him and tried to destroy his reputation. He talked about this many years later in his comedy special. If you quit a show like Chappelle's show, I don't know if you know what happens to you professionally, but I'll tell you what doesn't happen. They don't just say, well, good luck in your future endeavors. With that media, they beat me up. With their power, they tried to make me behave. It takes a strong person to stand out in the cold like that. When Dave realized that Comedy Central had done more harm to him than even Fox Network had, he was heartbroken but not hopeless. So he came to his community to ask for help.
I said, I'm going to my real boss, and I came to you because I know where my power lies.
Dave Chappelle didn't take it lying down. He straight up told people to stop watching the Chapelle show because he wasn't getting squat for his hard work. All the cash was just lining the pockets of those big shots in the industry. But you know what? People had his back. They stood by Chappelle, and just like that, the show became pointless without his fans tuning in.
And when you stopped watching it, they called me, and I got my name back.
With the support of his fans and community, Dave Chappelle managed to make an industry giant sweat. When Comedy Central saw they were not just losing money, but also their reputation, they finally coughed up what they owed Dave. But Dave kind of forgot that this wasn't the end of the battle. His enemy was way bigger than just one network, and reality was about to smack him in the face.
And I got my name back, and I got my license back, and I got my show back, and they paid me millions of dollars.
Dave woke up to the harsh reality of how much damage these industry bigwigs were causing to Black artists and performers. Racism was and still is running wild in Hollywood, and all these big networks and media moguls are making bank off it. He laid it all out in his special, saying something like,
why don't you just do Chappelle's show at another network? Yeah. And why doesn't a slave run from one plantation to another plantation because the master over there might be nicer?
With his fans rallying behind him, Dave managed to steer clear of the kind of enslavement so many of his fellow Black artists have had to endure. He gave a big shout out to his fans for always having his back, saying something along the lines of,
I couldn't thank you enough. You have kept me free. I have not had to do what so many of my colleagues have to do because of you.
Dave dodged the fate that so many Black artists get sucked into right from the get-go. Those industry giants make sure to manipulate and trap young up-and-coming performers while they're still green and clueless. In his special, Chappelle laid it all out, talking about how these contracts are intentionally made so dang complicated that folks don't even realize what they're signing up for.
It's so complicated, in fact, that when you're a kid like me, you have to hire somebody to tell you what that means.
In Hollywood, it's not the Dave Chappelle of the world calling the shots. Despite his hit shows and massive fan base, he was just a pawn in the hands of the Hollywood elite. And when he dared to stand up to the system, they knocked him down and messed with his head, tarnishing his mental health and public image in the process. He opened up about this crazy and stressful period in his life on the Oprah show, laying it all out there. It's a sad truth that what happened to Dave Chappelle is just par for the course in Hollywood's treatment of Black artists. There are plenty of examples where Hollywood execs try to tear down Black artists by questioning their mental health and sabotaging their careers. Just take a look at Kanye West's story. It's chilling how similar it gets after he also stood up for his rights.
I was exhausted. They wrongly diagnosed me, and they when I asked them how much lithium did you want to put me on exactly, it took them 4 days to answer because they were embarrassed about the amount.
Dave realized this before the executives had the chance to do the same to him. He even talked about it openly at the Oprah show. It has to be a wild coincidence that anyone who seems to start making money from their talent seems to be destroyed immediately, just like Martin Lawrence. How everyone that happens to get successful overnight gets called insane. Chappelle was called all sorts of things, and his credibility was put under question. Dave was robbed of not just his mental peace, but also huge amounts of money. These executives never paid him the money he was owed, which he later recalled in one of his shows.
People think I made a lot of money for Chappelle's show. When I left that show, I never got paid. They didn't have to pay me because I signed the contract.
It was clear that the giants of the industry were after him for daring to stand up against them. But who really owns the entertainment industry and the media? And are they owned by the same people? Dave Chappelle initially thought he was taking on one corrupt company in the industry, but he soon realized the problem was way bigger than just Comedy Central. They were just a piece of the puzzle in a much larger issue. He laid it all out in his special, saying something like,
"Why don't you just do Chappelle's show at another network? Yeah. And why doesn't a slave run from one plantation to another plantation because the master over there might be nicer?"
Comedy Central wasn't just any small network. In fact, it was owned by one of the biggest names in the industry, Paramount. Evidence suggests that Paramount Network is one of the most influential names in the entertainment industry, as they own countless companies and channels. Dave had taken up a fight not just against Comedy Central, but also some of the most powerful people in the world. Paramount is one of the biggest entertainment industries in America, and now owns MTV, Comedy Central, CBS, BT, Black Focus Channel, Nickelodeon, and so many other media channels. Paramount isn't free of controversies itself. The founder of Paramount, Mickey Rothstein, was close with the Jewish gambling boss, Harry Doc Sagansky, who invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in Mickey's expanding business organization. And to remove all traces of his dark past, in 1940, Mickey changed the family name to Redstone. It meant the same thing as Rothstein, but was less Jewish sounding and wouldn't make people wonder if he was related to the well-known Jewish America gambling boss Arnold Rothstein. People who knew Redstone since his childhood couldn't even recognize the monster he became when he joined the industry. One person said, "Those of us who knew Sumner when he was a young schlepper trying to survive as a film exhibitor would never have imagined his evolution into a corporate monster," comments one former associate. Comedy Central is owned by this organization that can hardly keep up with its own controversies. A book called Unscripted delved deep into the controversial world of Paramount. The founder, Rothstein, is involved in so many scandals and property disputes, and the author of the book has detailed them all. The book explains that dozens of trials are reported over financial conflicts, abusive dismissals, an essay involving some 20 women, including divorcees, fake heiresses, and high-class escorts. The biggest and most powerful family in the world is plagued by its own ghost. Even now, Redstone's family is in the midst of an ugly battle over who takes over the billion-dollar empire. Redstone's daughter Sherry has taken over the business and thrown out everyone who might come in her way. Even Redstone's partner has taken to court to fight for her place. She claimed that Sherry Redstone was estranged from her father and pushed her out of his Beverly Hills home to take over his life and to then use that dominion to take over CBS and Viacom. According to the author, the Paramount clan leaves one absolutely stunned by the scale of violence. The scandals at Paramount started with the casting couch, and then everything else followed. Luxury madams, and quick on the heels, SA, and ultimately R. For a company such as this, ripping an artist off doesn't seem like a moral dilemma at all. Well, in the murky world of Hollywood, Dave Chappelle stands out as a beacon of integrity. Not only did he stay true to his values, but he also managed to bring a heavyweight like Comedy Central to its knees. And he couldn't have done it without the unwavering support of his fans and the Black community. If Dave hadn't fought tooth and nail for his right and stayed steadfast in his truth, he would have been just another victim of the Hollywood elite's exploitation, like so many Black artists before him. But his battle isn't over yet. Comedy Central was just one piece in a much larger puzzle, and the true enemies still lurk in the shadows, pulling the strings of the entire entertainment industry. Dave has bravely exposed the horrors that plague this industry, revealing that oftentimes the truth is even more chilling than fiction. Hollywood, with all its glitz and glamour, can be a downright nightmare. That's it for today. See you in the next video. Until then, goodbye.